Good evening again. I'd like to call the committee of the whole for the Village of Cary on September 16th, 2025 to order with roll call, please.
Collier. Dudak.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Persina.
Here.
Stefani. Walworth.
Here.
Koenig.
I'm here. Please join me again with the Pledge of Allegiance. Moving to the public comment, where the public is an opportunity for the public to address the committee of the whole about issues otherwise not on the agenda. We have nobody signed in, so we'll close that at 6:15. We have a couple items tonight. One is the mural discussion, and we'll turn that over to Community Development. Director Simmons, please.
All right, so we're going to
next.
tag team this one.
It clearly
Here.
says Community Development.
We're a team effort.
Okay.
So plan is I'll give a overview, and then we have Director Simmons for any technical things that I may miss. So we're going to work on this as partnership here. So we are here tonight to discuss murals, not just window murals, but also wall murals. It's becoming very, very more needed in other communities and very popular, especially in McHenry County. So in the overview here, we're going to highlight what the Village of Cary has been doing so far in the last couple of years, what we're seeing in the Village of Cary when it comes to window murals, some window murals in other communities, and then wall murals as well, and then some recommendations for the Village Board to consider. So as you all are well aware, we've definitely been a strong proponent of public works of art and installations throughout Cary. We have our most recent with the utility wraps, the utility cabinet wraps this past year. And then in years past, on public facilities, our well house and wastewater treatment plant, we have 2 murals over there as well. This definitely has a domino effect throughout the community. Once community members have seen this, they've asked to see more of it from what we've seen on social media and past comments. It's also dovetails into window murals that we've seen in Cary. As you can see in the photos here, we have Cary Apothecary that has flowers on their window murals there. We have the Peaceful Project, which has more of a festival type feel for their murals on their windows there. And then we also have Amy's Driving School right down the street there with Amy in the vehicle. So we do see this throughout Cary, and we also see it throughout other communities. Some of these communities are all located in Illinois. I believe it's Westmont, East Dundee, and the bottom right corner is Wheaton. All similar guidelines, and also encourage it for their businesses in most cases. And then we'll jump over to wall murals. It's becoming, like I said in the beginning, very popular. McHenry has done 2 or 3 in the last year, very large murals, as you can see in the top left corner. And I know Director Simmons will touch on that a little bit on what these can be for tourist ideas as well. Woodstock with Groundhog Day, I believe Crystal Lake, Huntley, and I believe the bottom one is East Dundee as well. So in most cases, there is a process to get these wall murals approved to ensure that they're properly done and also last for many years to come. As you can see on the screen, we have our current municipal code in reference to the window murals and also the potential for murals on walls. These are where these fall. So for window signs, it can't cover more than 20% of the window itself. And then for prohibited signs for murals painted on the walls, it is prohibited per our current municipal code. As I mentioned in the beginning, here are some options that other communities in McHenry County are utilizing. Some communities have introduced an arts commission, acts similar to ZPA, where they can recommend approval to the village board for approval, or they would just simply treat this as a sign variance. So if a business or a private property owner were to come in today, we would treat that as a sign variance process. Communities with arts commissions, they may provide partial funding, so it could be a funding source, or provide a short list of approved artists to paint on these murals on these buildings. And I think I'll hand it over to Director Simmons for anything I may have missed.
So I think just from a discussion purpose, we wanted to bring it back before the boards for consideration if there's a need to amend our regulations that we have established. The window murals that we've seen within the community, we've not been regulating as window signs as they've been painted onto storefronts. And as long as they're not advertising something inside the space, it's generally an art feature that we've allowed from that perspective. So like with Amy's Driving School as an example, it does have a logo from her perspective as far as what that business operates. So that we've limited to the 20% of her storefront. But the other establishments that have utilized the artwork, we have not been regulating our codes from that standpoint. However, now we're starting to see a lot more businesses utilize that, and the artist that is doing the artwork is having other storefronts throughout the community as well. So just wanted to bring it before the board's attention to see if there's something that we wanted to address more specifically in that area, or if we're looking for more murals throughout the community, just to have a process for regulating those at this point. So with the prohibited signs section of our code, we do currently restrict murals painted on buildings within the code. So if it's something you would want to pursue a permanent mural on a facade, they would have to go through a variation process to do so, which is actually similar to what Crystal Lake does for some facades they have in their community. They've approved them as sign variances. So those are options that are there, but just really wanted to bring it before the board to see if there is a desire to develop more specific regulations for murals, or if we're fine with kind of the status quo as we're currently regulating.
Any discussion on this?
A quick definition question. Are we intending for the term mural for windows to be something that's temporary in nature? Or is there any discussion around it, requirement of it being temporary versus permanent?
That certainly we can review as far as the requirement from that. Right now, our sign definition of a sign is something that's affixed to the window. So we can further that definition to include paint, if we want to include those as signs as well, to regulate it within our existing sign code.
How many of the businesses that have windows painted now have asked for permission or asked for a variance of sign besides Amy's Driving School?
None of them have required to ask for permission, so when they've had the artist paint on the storefront, we've not issued a permit for those. Generally, for window signs, we do not issue issue permits for that as well. So they would generally, if a window sign is installed or an artist installed, we would inspect it and inform them of the code requirements for that. But they're not required to apply for the process as of today.
But content is limited, as you can't say the business name on it, correct?
Correct. So if there's the way we've been handling the murals that have been installed, as if it's not advertising something within the business, we've not been regulating the sign requirements. But if it is advertising something in the space, like the apothecary at one point had candles or things like that they're displaying, which is something that they were selling in the establishment, then we restricted it to 20% or to modify the mural so that it was more neutral in nature.
So do we have anything now where the business would know what they're regulated to, or just their sign ordinance?
Just the sign ordinance. So right now, there's no regulations for murals on murals at this point.
And that's one of the reasons staff brought this forward for discussion, just to see if there was a desire to have more clarity on the matter for businesses and for staff.
I agree. I think it's necessary
Yep.
that we have some clarification so that as business comes in, as a new business comes into town, they know what to expect. And also, everyone else knows what to expect. And while I'm not looking at anyone putting something up that we would not want to be put up, we also have to be very careful about, I know where they're limited with certain things that they can advertise or not advertise or put on a sign or cannot put, like vertical. There's certain things that they can advertise, that cannot advertise. But I certainly want to make sure that we're keeping up with the fact that the trends are changing. The trends are changing. This type of art is very popular all throughout everywhere now. So I think that we do need to come up with something. I don't have the answers for what it is, but I think that's going to help you do your job, and it's going to set expectations for businesses that come to our community to know what to expect.
Do we have any model what other communities have restrictions or how they run these right now?
So some communities don't regulate them at all, or majority of them don't. So if we're treating them similar to our window sign requirements, we have different regulations than other communities do. So that's where if there's a desire to regulate them, we certainly can come back with regulations to speak toward this topic more. And there could be specific regulations for murals or window art from that perspective. I think we've had inquiries in the past for murals. When a retailer was downtown, they were looking to do a mural on the facade of their building on the brick, and that was something we discussed having to go through the variance process. They chose not to pursue that, but if it's something that the board is desirable of allowing more murals to be incorporated throughout the community, we can develop regulations that would allow them more administratively as opposed to requiring a variation process for that as well.
Would it be easier to have, like you had mentioned, a commission to review this, or do you want to do it internally?
Well, before we get to that, Attorney Euler brought up a very good point. Scott, would you like to elaborate on
I don't want to kill the discussion
that? Well,
before.
it's an important piece of the discussion.
So as with any matter that involves expression, speech, ideas, we as a governmental entity have certain limitations that we would have to work within if we're going to propose to regulate, and those relate to time, place, and manner, which are legitimate regulations. Content is generally an issue we cannot regulate. So if we're concerned about what the content of a mural would be, not saying we have to be concerned about that, but if we are, we would want to be cognizant of that.
Doesn't that also follow under the side ordinance? When you're
Well, we
saying we
don't-
can't regulate what it depicts, correct?
Right, we don't control content under our sign ordinance. We control where the sign goes, how big it can be, the colors, et cetera.
Does that include advertising on windows, or is that different?
It includes the restrictions relative to time, place, and matter, not
Well,
content.
I think what you're saying is as long as it's not, because if it's, our sign ordinance prohibits putting a sign on a window that's more than 20% of the
Right.
window. So that we can control the size. We just can't control what's on that size as well as the
Okay, that's why I'm asking, clearly. Thank you.
But we have nothing for murals at this point at all.
nothing.
So, I mean, I think that's number one. We have to have something established for murals if we're looking to have people do that. We have people interested in that. And I know we talked again about the previous company that was downtown that wanted to do the big angel wings and all that kind of stuff. And I think we talked about, weren't they have to do it on a board, not actually on the brick?
Yeah, so there's different ways you can install the murals. So we were discussing different options that was there if they wanted to do it on something temporary so it wouldn't be painted onto the building. But certainly there are ways that you can affix a mural to a building. There's several examples of that in the area. So we certainly can regulate or develop regulations that can speak towards those concepts or those installations. If the board is open to wall murals as well, we can have regulations for those and what the process would be for approval for those. But the more of what we're seeing, the interest in the community is more the window art work from that standpoint, and developing regulations specifically for those we can certainly do as well.
What do you think? I'm just curious, you're working this, you see a lot of communities, what's going on, what do you see out there that's working in other communities?
I think just from the art standpoint, it's a good community type event where if you have the Main Street Fest example, or not Main Street Fest, or possibly Main Street Fest, but even the Mary Carey Parade.
Mayor Carey.
During the winter months, you can have all the storefronts that can have art, that would make it more of a festive, environment for customers and whatnot. So there's the ability to have those, features added. I've worked in a community that had, snow frosted glass on storefronts that made it feel like it was a winter environment from that perspective. But it wasn't regulated as a sign, but we didn't really have specific regulations for this. I think what we're seeing in the community now is kind of expanding upon that a little bit further. So there may need to be some more rules set in place for what that can be, but I don't think it needs to necessarily go through a permitting process or whatnot, just kind of establish what the guidelines are that the artist can work with it.
So Scott, could we require that they go through an art commission and an approval before?
Yes, you can have an architectural review committee. The architectural review for a structure, a building, a design that you might be approving. They would not be dictating what can or cannot be built in the village, but their feedback and suggestions or recommendations can be taken into consideration.
Could we also have a preferred artist list, or would they be able to have to be able to choose their own artist? So we can keep things uniform. Size, color, shape, you know what I'm saying?
I think that might be difficult.
Difficult, okay.
Um,
Just wondering.
That might be crossing the line again into dictating what goes on the
So we
sign
can
as
have
opposed to.
recommendations.
Right, right. So I'm not saying there isn't a way to do this. If we were to look at, maybe when you talk about seasonal signs, those can be temporary signs and they can be geared toward a particular theme.
Right.
We can regulate governmental property. If a sign is going on any property that the village owns, you can dictate then you can dictate what the message on the sign will be. So there are some ways to address content less directly than a global control of content of a sign.
What can we make it where there's a recommended, like, we don't want anything that's ridiculous and.
Well, I think we're at a point where I wanted to make a statement about where you're going and what Attorney Euler just said. I think on the window sign piece, we could just inform incoming businesses and current business. I mean, just a simple email flyer. Hey, if you want to do something in your windows, we encourage art. Here's the guidelines. Can't advertise your product, et cetera. That one I think is a no-brainer. We can set aside. We encourage it and we move on. When it comes to murals or signs directly on building and wall fronts, as a reminder to all of us, and hopefully we all don't need this, but the reminder is the First Amendment is there to protect our residents from us. It's there so that we don't restrict their right to say what they want. So by having this ordinance where we're not allowing this, we're taking the position of we're not going to try to regulate it, we're just not going to allow these kind of things. If we open that box and we say that we're more interested in having things like murals, however they may be affixed or painted or whatever it might be, we have to completely open the box all the way, and there will be somebody who will put up something that we don't like personally or that the majority of the community does not like. But interpreting the First Amendment properly, that's perfectly fine. If that's their building and that's their mural. So that is, in my mind, what I'm trying to think of. I love murals. I think they're wonderful additions, and I would encourage more people and to do all kinds of local artwork. But we have to think very carefully about not just allowing things that we would like. We don't get to decide what's going to go up. So when we talk about mural, we all think, oh, it's a picture spot, it's nice, angel wings. It could be something that none of us as a community like, but we would be powerless to stop somebody having their own freedom of expression.
Are we restricting them already by having the ordinance that prohibits it?
Well, I think right now since we don't regulate it and we have a sign ordinance, we could clearly take the position they're not allowed, that it is a form of sign.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're trying to clarify what if any regulations exist in this area. Either expressly authorize them or expressly prohibit them.
Correct.
But then they'd have to go to the ZPA for, go to the ZPA to see if we can get something, get a variance, correct?
Yeah, so right now, we're prohibiting signs painted on buildings, or a fence or wall. So that is a sign that's not allowed with our code. There's other signs that we don't allow as well that have movement or motion. So those are the type of regulations that we can have as far as the construction of the sign. But certainly, if you want to allow them, we can establish regulations for where they'd be permissible and how they'd be allowed, and then limit the size, the manner in which they can be installed and whatnot, so that we can have those regulations. But as far as what the specific content is of the sign, we can't specifically regulate that.
To be clear, they can put a sign on the side of your building right now.
Yeah, a
Ju-
wall sign is,
correct.
yeah, wall sign's permissible, so.
So they could put
it's-
up a sign right now that would very much look like a mural, you know, the way that it's constructed, but it would not be. So the only part that we're restricting is the signs directly painted on a building wall or fence. So if there is, we're not discouraging any kind of freedom of expression whatsoever. We're just restricting the manner in which it can be done. So in my opinion, as a board, I think we should encourage public art. And I think we've given an opportunity and a vehicle for that. Obviously, we've done that with our owned buildings and should continue to do that with those things. But in terms of these murals, there is an avenue for that. It might be slightly more cumbersome than maybe we would like, but I think it provides us a safety net to where if we do make it a little more cumbersome, then somebody's very interested in having that piece and they'll go through the process.
I mean, I brought up murals a long time ago, so I think they would be wonderful to see in town, but in listening to the rhetoric here, I'm just envisioning someone in, for instance, in downtown with a big glass window that has all these festive holiday decorations in there and then has some messaging in there that is not popular messaging, whatever that might be. We couldn't stop that if I understand you correctly, Scott, correct?
Generally, with the exceptions I noted, government property, that would be the case,
Yeah.
correct?
It could, but because it hasn't, we haven't had a lot of it, I don't think people are thinking of it. I like the idea of the commission. I would assume, Brian, that your vision is both windows and murals would fall under the same, under that commission?
Yeah, so if that's something that the board would want to see a group to review those, I would have both of them go to that type of commission for review.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
less-
it's a great idea. I think we just have to trustee Walrus' comment, it could be a slippery slope. And it's likely going to happen. It's just a question of when. So if we accept that, then we have a pretty town until somebody does that.
Why don't, Attorney Euler just brought up the fact that he's going to check into it. So it's, we're not ready to make a decision on this right now. But there's some legalities we have to look into. Like you said, that it may be able to, we can omit text. You can't have any text. You can just have art.
That wouldn't be content-based, it would be all text.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
So
I don't know. I'd have to
the
check.
hidden messaging would be, But I think that this is a good discussion to have. That we have a lot of positive feedback from the community, wanting to know if we're going to do more, where we can do it. They talk about some of these older buildings that might need a facelift with that. So this is a good conversation. If you look back at, I was just wondering, if you look back, Nick, can you go back to our slides at Public Works? Those were installed. Those were like a board on the building. So I guess the reason, because when I'm just going to say this out loud probably. Well, since we own the property, we can tell what can be said. Because when we put it out to the students to do this, it had to be community-related, water-related kind of a thing. Since we own that, we could dictate that.
Correct.
So if we
Stuff
encourage.
that's considered government speech.
Okay, perfect. So in the private sector, if a private business owner wants to offer a piece of art that can kind of reflect what they want, if what we're thinking about is maybe instead of allowing text on it, that we would just let it be like all art, illustrations, that kind of thing. That may be a direction to go to.
And I think using this experience, Mayor, then those businesses that are interested in that make the connection that Brian already has with the school district. And we already have a vehicle. Look at what we've already done in these 4, 5, 6 instances. If you would like something similar at your place of business, let's connect the dots and utilize what already worked for what we've done here with our buildings in the private sector.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, I think we have a little ways to go on this, and I think that this is a great conversation. We've been wanting to have this for quite some time because the question is being asked. So let's continue. Staff, Brian, you got enough information to
Yeah.
where you want to go with this? So we'll bring it back to another committee meeting. We're not ready to make a decision at any point here, but welcome any other feedback during the course of the time as well. One other thing that we brought up, that I've actually been wanting to talk about for a while, in a recent case that we had, talking to the trustees about video gaming and things, I think it's time that we kind of look at, it's been a while since we've done anything with gaming, that we should tighten some things up, make sure that we're all on the same page. It's been several boards ago that we created this ordinance, so I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to share their thoughts. I have my thoughts and my ideas, but I'd like to throw it out to the village board. But I think, Brian, are you going to talk a little bit about what's going on? And then we can kind of bring it back. This is the reason that we want to have a conversation about this.
Yeah, so this is just kind of a refresher of what our existing regulations mainly speak to. It's not the entire code, but at least can go through kind of what the video gaming rules are for locally, specifically looking at 3 sections of the code, which is the general regulations, the requirements for signage, and then also our restriction on video gaming cafes and the standards that are within there. So this slide goes through the general regulations. As you see, we have essentially 9 conditions that are in there. We generally limit the number of machines for establishments to a maximum of 6, which is what the state license requirements are as well. So when the ordinance was originally passed, we limited to 5 within the village of Cary. Then when the state bumped the number up to 6, we amended the code to allow for 6 licensed machines within each establishment. There's regulations as far as where the machines can be located within the establishment. They're not supposed to be visible from the outside of the establishment, most be internal. Some of the establishments that originally had licenses issued from the village, there's limited areas that they could have put the machines, so we had some of them more prominent through the entryways, the other ones are more located in the rear of the establishment. They have to comply with local regulations for liquor within the community. So if there are violations for their liquor license or the gaming licenses are licenses that can be revoked by the liquor commissioner in the village from that standpoint. Believe that's kind of the highlights in this slide. I mentioned it has to comply with our local regulations, also state requirements. As far as signage, they are allowed to have temporary window or temporary signs on the property to advertise gaming in accordance with our regulations for signs within the community. So if a storefront, allows for the 20% window coverage, they can have advertisements in their windows that advertise the gaming at that establishment, as long as it doesn't exceed the 20% requirements. And those can be permanent signs within their windows throughout the year. They are also allowed to have temporary signs on the property, so those can be temporary banners or flags, potentially are examples of ones that could be installed. Those are limited throughout the calendar year as far as how long those can be installed. Those would require a permit for installation as well. They're not allowed to have any permanent signs on the property, like a monument sign that indicates gaming, or off-premise signs as well to advertise gaming at their location. The main regulation, this is a change since the original ordinance was passed in 2013. This was added to our code, I think, in 2019 or roughly around there. We established local requirements for restriction on video gaming cafes. This section of the code specifically established regulations for ways that we'd review an establishment, whether it was a gaming cafe, which was primarily designed as a gaming was the driving force to go to the establishment, versus the policy for the village historically has been that gaming's more an accessory use to a restaurant or a bar type atmosphere, so that the gaming is kind of not the driving force for why individuals are going there. It's mainly for the food and other atmosphere that they provide. So there's 2 sections that highlighted here speak towards the preparation and variety of food is something that we can consider as far as what the establishment is providing as far as food options, and also that they would provide the operation or creation of an operation of a commercial kitchen on the property, or have a partnership with an establishment that operates a commercial kitchen. So that would allow for a establishment that either is providing food at their site or potentially connected to another location, possibly directly next door, that can provide the food for them, but that would allow them to have gaming terminals in their establishment. Other items that we have identified on this, oop, that was only one slide. Go back, sorry. Other requirements that were established was as far as the 10-to-1 terminals to customer seating requirement, so that if you have one machine, you can only have 10, you need to have at least 10 seats per customers. So if you want the full 6 machines at your establishment, you need to have 60 seats for customers at least in that establishment. Another requirement that we established was the 4-to-1 floor area ratio requirement, so that for every 1 square foot that was dedicated to gaming, if it was a gaming room or where the terminals were established, you need to have 4 square feet dedicated to other purposes in the establishment as well. So that was a way that we would regulate gaming cafes that are specifically gaming only versus providing areas for restaurant patrons as well. Since we've passed this ordinance, we have generally get several inquiries throughout the year for gaming cafes. They come in waves. Usually we'll get no calls for a few months, and then we'll get 3 calls in a week. And once we refer to these regulations, that the gaming cafes generally don't pursue the location. More recently, we've seen new establishments come into the community that have smaller footprints, but they do provide food operations as part of their establishments. So those are ones that are coming online here in the near future, but we have seen more of a push for smaller restaurant operations from a standpoint that gaming is a critical component of the operation that the operator is looking for, but they're not as a full-scale restaurant as what we've seen in the community in the past. Really want to provide this information for reference and discussion purposes. Happy to take any feedback the board may have on our current regulations. If there's a desire to make changes, we certainly can do so to go forward and modify the regulations based on what the board is looking for in the future.
Let's open it up for some discussion.
I had a quick question, just sort of a clarifying point. In one of the slides, it indicated that you could have a partnership with another business that has a commercial kitchen. I believe I know the answer to this, but just for the sake of getting it out over the airwaves, that doesn't include a partnership with a food truck. That wouldn't be considered a commercial kitchen. It's got to be something that's brick and mortar.
Correct. Yeah. So currently, every establishment that has gaming either was when the village first passed the gaming requirements, they might not have had a kitchen when they operated. Once we passed the gaming cafe license in 2019, every new establishment that come in has provided their own food operations. We have not looked at a connection with a food truck as an way to provide gaming. We did have a discussion, I believe last year, regarding an establishment in town that currently does not have kitchen, but has food truck operations, regulated their business. We're looking to make a modification for that business based on the size of their establishment, and they also produce other products on the site as opposed to food. They never pursued that modification, but that's something that we had explored as a board in the past, modifying the code for craft brewing operations.
They were preparing something.
Correct. Yeah, they're still looking at, there's a legal matter that caused that to not move forward.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Walworth?
I just want to add some data before we get into discussion of what we do and don't want to do. I do have a little experience here for full disclosure. One of the properties I oversee has video gaming terminals. The data for the state of Illinois video gaming terminals will show on a per terminal basis the last 2 years, basically the last 3 years, 2022 through 2024. Per terminal basis, the wagers, the terminal income is flat. So this is not a growing market. So when we start talking about what we do or don't want to do in terms of adding more establishments that have these terminals, in my mind, I'm viewing that as taking away from our current customer base. So if we've got 10 folks in town that have it, and we know it's a lot more than that, if we're thinking about adding an 11th, the data will tell you there's not going to magically be more money wagered in Cary. We're just going to be taking money away from the other facilities. That's the reality of what the data says. Now, it's a little more nuanced than that, but, you know, that's kind of the thick slice. That's happening across the board. The facilities that utilize these, in the studies that I've done leading up to my use with them on a business standpoint, was there are facilities that use this as a complete ancillary item. It's very small potatoes. It's just a little add-on. And then there are businesses that this is the reason they are there. Everything else is ancillary. And even ones that are not gaming cafes, which we've made our stance, and our ordinance makes our stance clear on gaming cafes. We're not in favor of that. There are establishments here in Cary that are operating, and ones that want to come operate, that are a wolf in sheep's clothing. They are a gaming cafe that is, you know, warming up a pizza. And the discussion I would like to hear from the board is, what is our intent on, we're telling the community, what do we want gaming to look like in Cary? And that's the piece that I want to drive to it. And I think that we need to relook at our ordinances. We need to look at the amount of terminals and or licenses that we allow in Cary, because we are very small. It's not going to grow. We need to stop and think about that, because, you know, I don't want to pollute the waters with my own thoughts, but I think we need to have a discussion about the volume that we have in Cary right now.
Well, that's the reason why we're going to have a discussion. Because I think it's important that we take a look at things. Things need to be refreshed every now and again, and look at the direction that we're going. So anybody else have anything?
Sure. So speaking to that end of it, if we put a cap on the number of machines allowed from whatever we have now to a new business coming in, is that restriction legal? To tell a new business that operates with a full kitchen and is 100% a restaurant, they cannot have gaming?
Yes, we have a discretion to ban or not video.
On just based on what our number is?
Because we can cap our liquor licenses, which we do until we get another petition, then we add another
Okay,
one.
so that's where I'm going. So if a brand-new restaurant came in and their driving force is 95% alcohol and food sales, and they still want gaming, are we capping that or not capping
Well,
that?
that's part of the discussion
Right,
that we're going to
so,
have.
but I just wanted to be clear on if we're allowed to cap, but we would cap on liquor license, not gaming.
Well, that's where I get your control, is with the liquor license. You know, my suggestion about having this discussion was not about limiting, putting up numbers and that stuff. How do we want video gaming to look in our community? Are we doing what we set out to do? Is it working the way it is?
So that'll be my second question. On the legal end, can we go back to the sign ordinance part of it? The slide that we had about signage and windows?
Yeah,
'Cause that's-
this is very near and dear to Trustee Collier.
So this is where we're going back. They can put up a neon sign on the window that says gaming inside, and we cannot restrict that, correct?
Correct, correct, based on our regulations, so. they
Can we
have-
change the ordinance to restrict it?
Yes. The gaming, so the regulations for a video gaming establishment right now allows for temporary signs, so a temporary sign under a sign permit they can
Right.
get, and window signage in accordance with the code. If you wanted to regulate the licensed establishment and what types of signage they can have, I believe the license can establish that requirement to regulate what type of advertisement they can have.
So if we move forward and change it, we could have everybody that has those signs up now remove the signs.
We could, yeah, I think we'd have to give them time to comply with
Notice,
the
but
ordinance.
yes.
Yes. So
Okay.
if it's, the ordinance changes and, you know, it's a 2-year, sunset or whatever the timing is, you can certainly notify those businesses that the signage would need to be removed by a date certain.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great discussion. I've had a lot of great discussions with the trustees over this matter, and it's good to just bring it together so everybody can hear what they have to say. Yeah, no, I got, yeah.
And I think that we do need to. It is something that has, we haven't looked at this in quite a while. I apologize for my coughing, by the way. I apologize. Because when we did this, we wanted to make sure that we did not come across as a community that was a gaming community. And, I hear a lot of feedback from residents that don't like the way it's looking. They don't like those neon signs. They don't like that type of thing. So I do think it's incumbent upon us to relook at this, see where we're at. I don't want to be in a position, though, that I say to there's a restaurant that's going to come to town that, hey, we're not going to afford you the opportunity if you are a fully functional business. I think one of the things that happened is honestly, I think we got a little burned by one of our businesses that has not followed what they should have been doing with this. And that also brought it, that we need to bring it back to the committee of the whole to discuss what we want and what our goal is with it. Again, my goal is that I don't want it to look like we're a gaming community. So I'm open for making some amendments that's going to, I think, beautify and also not be in a position, while I respect exactly what Trustee Walworth was saying here, you're right, it may not, I don't think the idea of it is to increase revenue. It's a matter of, is that an ancillary product that people want to have if they're bringing a new business to town that can justify it? So I don't want a business to say, I'm not going to come here, I'm going to go to the next town, and it's a really viable restaurant because we said, nope, we're done. We're not letting you come. So
Well,
I
I
just
don't
want to
think
be
that's the-
nimble.
yeah, I don't think
didn't
that that's
you
the
said
case,
that.
yeah.
I'm just saying that I want us to be careful about how we do it, but we have to do something.
Right. I would clarify that I think it is a valid discussion to have. Do we think we should have a cap? We have 18% more gaming terminals in Cary than we did 3 years ago. That's a short measure of time, but it isn't too many cycles into the future of that to where instead of having 59 terminals, we have 127 terminals. If we get additional restaurants that we would love to see, additional taverns and bars, which we would love to see, which is great, is that automatically 6 for every single one? So I'm open to take this discussion there. If we want to talk about actually limiting, there are communities that have a limited number, just like liquor licenses. There's a fixed amount. If you want to come to Cary, we'd love to have you, but you're not going to get any terminals until some expire. If we're not going to take the discussion that way, if it's more along the lines of we don't want to be seen as having gaming, I'm open to have that discussion, but I like to be direct. Hiding it in the back room, I know some of our ordinances, that's the way we're taking it as well. It's okay, we're just going to hide it in the back room. Well, let's talk about whether we should actually have a certain amount or not versus whether you can see it or not.
That's a local regulation, yeah.
So if you do that, though, does existing business have to apply, or are they in already?
So it's, again, how the board would want that change to apply. Generally, if it could be grandfathered in for existing establishments, or if you wanted to unilaterally make the change, again, it would probably have a date that they need to comply within or comply by. But it wouldn't be, we're going to make the change today and then you have to drop 2 machines. It's when they renew the license or a certain time period.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
it's going to depend on how much of an investment they've already made
Correct.
in the machines, in the process, and the structure inside the establishment. So we'd have to be careful in amortizing the removal of machines.
Right.
So.
It'd be the same if you drastically rewrite a sign ordinance and you want to change the regulations in the village, and you have every sign in the village no longer complies with code. You have to give them time to, recoup their investment before they have to replace that sign.
I would also we need to be, using the grandfather term, we need to be very careful about how we proceed, because I would be open to having that discussion. But we have multiple businesses in town that are operating that don't fit our current ordinances because they are grandfathered in.
Correct.
And if any one of those businesses came forward and said, I want to do exactly what I'm doing right now, I have a feeling that everyone on this board would say no. So if we're looking to change something, we have to look and see what is our desired outcome, why are we doing it, and how do we then get compliance without handing the current situation a golden parachute to be that way forever.
Trustee Dudek.
When this first came out, I said,
Oh, he was no. Yeah.
and I said, I'll repeat it for those that didn't hear it. If you need to have video gaming in your establishment in order to be in business, you shouldn't be in business. I still feel that way today. The environment is changed, though, and we all have to recognize that the environment has changed since when video gaming came out. But having said that, I still am not a big fan of it. I can think of at least one establishment in town that would probably make more money if he could give up that space for 2 more tables as opposed to the 5 machines he has over there, because he's always crowded, so we all know who that person is. On the other hand, other establishments in town, when I've been in there, the places aren't full, even the video gaming spots aren't full. I like the idea and would like to explore limiting the number, both in town, like liquor licenses, and perhaps even at establishments. I think that is the way to go. You know, we as a board hear repeatedly from people on issues that we are, you know, hot in the middle of right now, that Cary is this, and I came to Cary for that, and blah, 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 blah. And potentially having 150 or 200 machines in this town is not consistent with that kind of community. So I think we have to have a lot more discussion, and limitation is something I really, really think we have to look strongly on.
Trustee Brazino?
Yep, thank you. I'm also in favor of exploring the beautification suggestion, looking at that signage. I understand hiding it in the back room is not solving any problems, but I also, to your point, don't want to turn any businesses off who can prove that they are, you know, they have X amount of food sales, liquor sales. I would hate to, again, lose out on a valuable business. So a delicate process, but I would agree we need that balance thing.
No, I agree. Part of the conversations that I want to have is because I am inundated all the time in the community with people like, what are you guys doing? You know, I am not anti-gaming. I think it's here to stay. It's supposed to be ancillary to their food and their liquor, which is that's our whole desire behind this, and that these local business owners would then reinvest in the community by enhancing their restaurants, beefing up new booths or tables or kitchen, and reinvesting using local vendors to help them. That was the initial when we first did this, because when Rick and I were on the board, when I was a trustee in 2009, 2010, when the village board voted unanimously against gaming, and then we brought it back in 2013. There was some, I had to go to other municipalities to find out what the value would be for us. So we brought it back, and this is where we were. I don't think our goal is to push away any new potential businesses, but I think what we really need to focus is tightening up our ordinance so it's a little bit more crystal clear. I understand. I'm totally with you when it comes to the signage and that thing. I think that needs to be nipped in the bud sooner than later. One of the things that I hear all the time from all generations, and it's not just because originally it was seniors, but now you've got younger generations with kids. You walk into these places, you see these gaming machines, and they want to know what this is all about. They don't want their kids exposed to this, and I get it. Part of the initial part of our ordinance was it was supposed to be in a separate room, had to be, it was much more strict, and the state was much more strict than it is right now. So what I would like to do, and what my goal, and I've been talking with staff about, is that beefing up our ordinance to reflect that it has to be in a separate area in the back, so people just can't see it. So you can walk into a restaurant and not be exposed to that. That, I think, should be a goal of this board. I consider that beautification too. People don't want to go in there. We've heard people come to the village board saying that enough is enough. I don't go to our establishments because they all have gaming and I'm not a gamer. And I'm like, I get that. I see that. We need to come to some sort of a realization how we can help that. Another thing that is very gray that we've had some instances with to try to clarify is, the food, kitchen, commercial kitchen versus a prep area, what they have. I don't ever remember approving this, and I've said this to Brian like 100 times. I don't ever remember approving the original ordinance that says that they can use a separate kitchen off-site. I would like my goal is to remove that. I think it should be all on-site. It would be very clear then. When we're welcoming a new business into town, that they are going to have whether it be, and Brian and I have had very spirited conversations about this, trying to be fair to everybody, and that we have to make sure that what the menu that they're serving is going to support what's going to happen. So, for instance, if you're going to have a new pizza place or burger place or full service, they're going to have the stuff that requires a commercial hood, then that they should require a commercial hood to run their business. Now, there are some that don't require that. they just need like a food prep area. It has to be separate, that they're, we have a new one that's coming into town that they just need they don't need a full vent. We just need to clarify that. I think there's a lot of misnomers out there. I've had business owners come up to me and said, all right, what are you guys doing? Why is this here? Why are you allowing all these new things? And I'm like, it's because this is what people want. We have to adapt and pivot to what other businesses are looking for. And we want to welcome new people in here. I'm welcome to have a conversation. I think it will be a healthy conversation about, limiting the numbers, but I don't want to get caught in the numbers. I want to get caught into how can we make it more appealing to nicer establishments to come in town. If that's part of their business plan, if it's, 20% of their business plan is going to be gaming, I could live with that. But, to Trustee Walrus' point, we have people that just aren't complying with our ordinance right now. And that's, grandfathered in. And I just want to make sure that, we're fair to everybody, that we want to look at something, the whole ordinance, holistically. We did make that one change in 2019, but I think it needs to be looked at a little bit further and, come up with something that we all will agree, but still be welcoming to new businesses, because people, this is what they want. This is part, like it or not, this is how people run their businesses now, and it's part of their businesses. So we have to embrace it. Trustee McAlpine said, maybe we boost up the number of seats per machine, to really kind of get away from that. So then it really is an ancillary, and it removes the thought of even remotely looking like a gaming cafe. And it's right. I think we're very proud of what we've done. We have really changed the look of this community in the past many years, and we want to keep that going forward. I don't want people saying, well, you go to Cary, you can get gaming and do all these things. I don't want to be known for that. I want to be known for us being fair to businesses, in welcoming, encouraging new types of businesses, and let them know what our expectations are. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to be honest.
Can I ask one more question?
You could ask two.
One.
I'll ask one after you, if that's all right.
So are we allowed to discuss now what's a business that has already come forward, opened, ran gaming, didn't comply with the ordinance, stopped the gaming? Now where does that leave us? Can you revoke the gaming license completely? How does this all work?
What are you talking about? The one we did because they were non-compliant. And
Correct,
as the
with the-
liquor commissioner, I revoked their gaming because they didn't comply with the commercial kitchen. They started before.
So do they have to come all the way back to the board for approval again?
No.
No, it's currently suspended, the license from that standpoint. So
But if they come back into a commercial kitchen and operating, they're automatically back on?
That's the case, yeah.
I don't like that part either.
Yeah.
But, okay.
That, when we had a hearing, that was the condition. Because originally when they were moving into the space and were going to do it, they were going to have everything done at once. Well, come to find out that, they didn't have a commercial kitchen. I went in there one time and I go, let's see your menu. We don't have a menu. Why don't you have a menu? Well, we don't have a kitchen. I'm like, well, that's a problem. So, again, we have to be clear and concise. We want to be welcoming. We want to be encouraging to our businesses, but we have rules and regulations so we don't have anarchy when it comes to this. And I'm painfully aware of the number of our residents that come to us that they're watching. They're looking. Why do you keep adding this? So, anyway, that's my story.
I would go with that, but I also see still a lot of people sitting at machines.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that, but there's still a lot of people should have those machines.
Yeah, I get it. So we have a ways to go on this. This is just a beginning of the conversation. I think it's a healthy conversation. It was a good conversation. So does anybody else have any other comments?
Just very briefly.
Take as long as you want.
Well, time is of the essence.
Not really.
This is sort of a chicken or the egg question to pose, but does this process begin with maybe an investigation and sort of an enforcement of our current rules on existing businesses? We go in, we clean up what's there, or would this be a matter of redefining certain things or clarifying certain things and then going out with an enforcement campaign, if you will?
What do you
it'd be
think
more
about
of the latter.
Okay.
From a standpoint of the existing businesses in town, generally are compliant with the regulations or the approvals that we have. It's more clarifying exactly what the desire or the vision is for the village board from possible changes the code would be, and then if we're adopting those regulations, then we'd implement those going forward. So I think the feedback just hearing this evening is signage is a concern, the layout of the establishment is a concern, and potentially number of machines or ratio of machines to seats. So I think we can certainly draft some modifications to the regulations that we have currently, bring it back to the board for discussion and see if that's what the changes are or going in the right direction. Obviously, if you have specific regulations you look for, I'd be happy to take that advice as well. But we can certainly draft some modifications, bring it back to the board, and see if we're going down the right path.
Thank you.
The kitchen area prep versus what relating to menus kind of a thing. And I'd really like to talk about having the gaming be in an isolated area. I mean, you can't do it now. People have it. I get it. I mean, the time to do it is when somebody comes to the village and say they want to do it. They want to do a build out. I'm like, okay, this is great. Then this is what you're going to do. You need to have this off the beaten path. So
But isn't that already what our ordinance says?
not quite.
Not
What does our
exactly.
ordinance say
Yeah.
now?
So
This is why I wanted to clarify it.
the language in the ordinance basically is located in an area restricted to persons 21 or age or over. The entrance to the restricted area must be within view of at least one employee of the establishment who is over 21 years of age. So it doesn't specifically say it's a room. It's in cases it's what you've seen in the state basically required, like stations or stanchions set up in
And
there.
Attorney Ewing, can we have to comply with the minimum, the state standard is the entrance to the restricted area needs to be under surveillance by an individual over all.
Or can be by camera.
Cannot be by camera unless you're a truck stop in the state of Illinois. So if you, as a municipality, can we go more restrictive than that? Is that an opportunity for us to, because I think that what I'm hearing from the board here is potentially instead of the mythical little ribbon wall that anybody can walk around at some of our establishments, making it a full-size enclosure wall.
Yes, those are the minimum requirements we have to meet under the state law.
So we could entertain and have a discussion on making it an enclosed room as long as the entrance to that room meets the requirements and the fire department doesn't have issues with the room, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, because at the end of the day, you have the ability to say, no,
Yeah.
no video gaming. So you can restrict, you can allow it with restrictions if you can prohibit it altogether.
Did you have a comment, Trustee Dudek?
I like that idea, but isn't also part of the regulation that somebody from the establishment has to be able to see it? So if it's a closed room, my question would be, would video cameras meet that requirement of somebody from the establishment being able to see it? No.
I thought you could use cameras.
Not currently. It is a challenge to make sure, if you're
Yeah.
going to limit the visibility of the area, I don't know exactly what that would look like, what the ultimate regulation would look like, but it does have to be within view of of somebody over 21 years old at all times. So if that means that person has to be has to be separated to a certain extent from the rest of the customers, restaurant customers, or the bar customers, that's what would have to happen.
The gaming partners, to Trustee Dudek, to your board, direct your question, they provide cameras for all the machines. And their partner at the establishment has access to all of those. But that does not satisfy the requirement of the state, which is the control of the entrance.
What type of control? An employee watching 24/7
Right,
that
because
they're open?
it's not active surveillance, yeah.
Correct.
They
You have
do
to have
not.
you have to have a live employee that
Right,
can
but
see
they
it.
don't really enforce that because there's
I
many.
can
that-
guarantee
right.
you they do not, because I've been
Okay.
in enough establishments in
Me
Illinois
too.
where there's
In
nobody.
Cary alone, there's several.
So it doesn't have to, I guess, good question to have is, does it have to be like a constant surveillance, or people just kind of go in there and come out?
The idea and the way it was put in front of me in the liquor commission is you have to have a live employee using 21 who when they're at their normal workstation has just by looking up can see the entrance to the restricted area, period. That's all it is. So if you have an open space like, I don't know, a golf course where people are coming at 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., if the gaming machines are going to be open, you have to have an employee that has their eyes on that. So at my particular establishment, 10 a.m. is when the restaurant bar area is open, that's when the gaming machines are open.
So we need a lot of clarification here. Is there anything anybody else wants to add to this? Any other, feel free to reach out to myself or staff.
Good starting
Yeah, it is. I didn't think we were going to come to any
Right.
decisions today, but I think we need to have a robust conversation. So, yeah, Anthony, do you have any questions, concerns? He's gaming somewhere. He left. Okay. All right. Since there is no other discussion regarding this, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:14.